Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzerl, he's Kyle Ferguson, and we're going to say words. Hey, Kyle.
Words, yes. Big words, small words, all kinds of words. How's it going, Garrett?
It's going all right, man. I lost a battle with some earbuds before the show. I love tech problems. No. Well, I mean, arguably the earbuds lost the battle in the end, because when, I don't know about you, but when electronics stop working, for me, that's it. I become Sid from Toy Story. That piece of plastic's days are over.
You want them to work, and I'm recovering from my own computer woes this week. Just built the new streaming rig. It's running fantastic, but had to deal with a bummer motherboard, a bummer power supply, and the drivers. Oh my goodness, dude. We must have had a bucket brigade moving from the living room computer with USBs into this room, back and forth. Who even gives CDs? Just give me USBs. No one even owns CD players anymore.
Half the computers don't even have them in them anymore.
Exactly. But I can still purchase a USB floppy drive? I don't know. Computers are weird, man. But the madness is when you have the printer right next to the computer and it doesn't know it's there. But this went that next step because everything was plugged inside the case and it didn't know it was there. But man, we've recovered. Things are looking great. For a long time, I recently replaced my desks. But for a good 4 years, I was using the same desk that had the perfect fist-size hole that I put in it upon getting beat by Marines as Zerg many, many years ago. And that was a constant reminder to me to treat my objects with respect.
Wow, dude, I can't believe that. I'm not sure I've heard this story. I can't imagine a universe where Kyle put a hole in something.
Oh, can't you, man? All right, I'll take you back. Take you back to the very end of Wings of Liberty and the very beginning of Heart of the Swarm, when Medivacs got a speed boost.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I know you, man. You're the monk. You're Zen. You're, you know.
We're going back 5 years, man. It's all from experience. You just don't wake up Zen one day. Why do you think there's all these great movies about really cool, badass guys who have to, calm down? I mean, they just did that in Game of Thrones with the dog, and then he went on a rampage, but all the same.
You mean that would be the Hound? The dog is the reality television bounty hunter.
Kind of looks the same.
You're right. If you took the Hound, you dyed his hair blonde, you're absolutely right. It's
time.
That would be very correct.
I tell this to everyone I can. Treat your objects like visitors, and you won't be sad when they leave. They're just going somewhere else.
Well,
maybe to a better place. Maybe my beanie really wanted to ride the Chicago bus for the rest of his days.
I don't know. There's a part of me that I don't think will ever outgrow the joy of breaking no longer functional electronics.
Yeah, in a sort of office space.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. You take that thing out to a field, you bring a bat, you put on some gangster rap, you have yourselves a good time.
But inevitably, you got to make sure you follow up. Otherwise, someone ends up with a Mad Catz controller, and nobody wants that.
That's very true. Very true. Oh, boy. I still remember the first time I bought an off-brand controller. Don't do that. So, I don't know. Maybe they're not as bad now, but...
I think they're still pretty...
Yeah, that's true. You're probably
I haven't stepped foot in a GameStop in forever, but I can only assume.
I go in there every now and then hoping to, get lucky and find a old copy of, Pokemon Red for Game Boy Advance, so it has the better graphics. But I've so far... not so lucky, and they're quite expensive on eBay. So, anyways, we are here to talk about Heroes of the Storm, where you most likely have yourself a good mouse and a good keyboard. So, this episode is brought to you by our patrons today over at patreon.com/ITN. If you're digging this show, you want to support us, check that out. Otherwise, there's a few things happening next week, Kyle. So it's time to dive into Heroes of the Storm news and get hyped!
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Can stitches play now?
Yeah, I love it when... Oh, cigar fell in the... Oh, wait!
We must prepare ourselves, Kyle, because this Tuesday, Alarak and Braxis Holdout are coming to the Nexus.
Yeah, so at the same time, the new map, the new hero. Ooh, I'm stoked. It was a little rough watching some esports this past weekend because you just want everything to be here. Now, granted, they probably wouldn't have played on Braxis Holdout anyway. Alarak may have gone unpicked anyway, but I'm really stoked about this event.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of known to be StarCraft fans, so the fact that we're getting 2 StarCraft-themed battlegrounds getting us a little excited. And we're also getting we're getting the event. I miss the events from Diablo quite a bit. From the Eternal Conflict, I had a really good time chasing down treasure goblins. It was I like seeing that cross. I mean, Heroes of the Storm is one giant crossover, so feel free to inject even more crossovers, Blizzard. I very much appreciate it. So we're getting the Xel'Naga artifact hunt. We're going to get to blow up some SCVs, Kyle, and stop them from harvesting Xel'Naga artifacts that we will then harvest ourselves.
And when you complete it, when you get 12 artifact pieces during a single game, you get a stim pack, it's a one-day stim pack, but that's still pretty nice.
I honestly, at this point, I've accrued quite a bit of gold, so this excites me more than just getting a little more gold. I'd rather have an XP increase for a 24-hour period.
Well, so we can get to 10 and spend said gold, or 20, if you want to get nuts.
I do want to get nuts. Everybody get nuts.
What do you think is going to be the biggest impact of this patch? Because there's so much coming in with it. There's all the patch changes, hero changes, reworks. Where do you even start? What do you do day one when you get in there, and how do you play different?
I mean, for me, dude, it really, my snap answer is the movement speed. The change to mounted speed and the change to other similar abilities to bring it in line. It's such a global change, the Heroes of the Storm. It's going to affect everyone. And we talked about it last week, but I think it bears repeating. It lets the game breathe a little more. Whatever you are about to go do, if you are not in a fight, if you have to relocate, the fact that you now move slower across the board, every single hero on a mount moves slower now. It just makes everything that much more deliberate, and it gives you, just a hair more time to think about what you are about to go do. It gives just a little more importance to map awareness and keeping an eye on your mini-map, because now it's going to take just a hair longer for whoever disappeared from the mini-map to show up in some new area.
It's going to be tough. You think about our most recent big patch, the catapult changes, them locking on, the damage of the minions, our whole sort of specialist meta, which has sort of gone away and became this weird sort of just ban Zagara, ban all the specialist meta. And then no one needed the specialist because we just took Kael'thas Jaina, someone with some sort of lane clear, in order to deal with the problems. And hey, you never even have the problems anyway if you're winning, which is kind of the weird element of this previous patch, this previous meta cycle. Why even get Sylvanas on your team? Sylvanas is amazing, by the way. If you can just win in the first place and not have to have an answer to catapults. So I'm curious what our initial reaction as a community will be, which I think will be a lot of global heroes that will continue to be in the spotlight as they've already been, but maybe something like Dahaka becomes a little more meta. Maybe even things like Lost Vikings, Abathur, all these characters that can really traverse big lengths or do things that are outside the range of heroes to respond to. Like Asmodan, he can throw an orb from one lane to another on some maps. Will that lane clear be enough to maybe give that power, and then he puts his demon general in that lane and that pushes and there's no one to respond to it? I mean, certainly if you're jungling on Illidan all by yourself for the whole early game until you get 10, you are going to make mercenaries that people have to respond to. And now they move that much slower to respond to that, giving you map control, giving you awareness of how long they're down there, and knowing that if there's mercenaries in the bottom and 2 people have responded to it, we can take a boss on Cursed Hollow up top, and they won't be able to get there. But I'm curious, those are all our initial reactions. What's going to happen in 4 weeks when everyone's already gotten used to this? And to talk about those objectives, it's a really interesting thing. Cursed Hollow, Infernal Shrines. Cursed Hollow's been with us for a long, long time, so it's not a big surprise when you wipe the enemy team. They res fast enough that they come back fully topped off. Your team from the previous fight is half health, half mana, and they just school you. This happens a lot on Infernal Shrines right now, or even Towers of Doom, if you end up splitting kind of weird in the early Shrine phase. So this means that they won't report on time anymore, and maybe that objective will go to the person who wins the fight.
That's very true, and it's obvious, as always, will depend on factors, and the different types of objectives are going to also have an effect on it as well. In Fertile Shrines, you have to kill X amount of skeletons rather than channeling one specific thing. So unless you've collected enough skeletons where that timing makes a difference, you still might not be rewarded for winning that fight, versus say getting a tribute on Cursed Hollow. But yeah. I don't think we even dropped the buzzword of rotations, but rotations is the thing I'm the most excited to see how rotations pan out in the pro scene post-patch. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about PAX and the North American Fall Regionals here in a little bit, but I have to say I had a really hard time getting into it because I know this patch is coming just around the corner on Tuesday. And on top of that, we know we're getting a side tournament, which has no bearing whatsoever on the championship. But we're going to get a side tournament that will be using content from Machines of War, and I'm frankly very excited to see that. I want to see this in the hands of pros and in the realm of coordinated play.
And when you take away that point system, going to BlizzCon with it, there's going to be a bit more silly play, which will be very fun to see, and I look forward to those events a lot. What I'm really curious about are all the side things. I mean, we can talk about, sure, Falstad's flight. It's going to be very powerful. He's getting a slight nerf, but with the current movement speed changes going in, he's going to be able to traverse a lot of land that people won't be able to respond to very quickly. But what about some of the weird ones? What about, this is a horrible idea, what about mines from Abathur? And you finally get mounted up, and you're making your way slowly across the map, and then you hit a slow mine. And then you have to remount. And you can just imagine. You talked about rotations there. What about the guy who lags behind? I'm talking in solo queue or duo queue or your own team leagues. What about that one guy who just wants to lane that extra second, get that last orb? Think of how much harder he is messing up when he stays behind.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is the thing I'm personally the most worried about, the thing I'm trying to be self-critical of, because that is the number one mistake I make the most often, without a doubt. It's like, crap, something's on the wall, let's clear it out. But then the other 4 players on my team who I'm not talking to because it's a pickup game, engage in a fight, I'm not there because, like you said, I stayed an extra second to clear out a lane. And with the new reduced mount speed, I'm really going to be screwing things up.
And maybe for a time you should hang out on Brightwing, Falstad, some of these kind of characters to make sure you can cover that on yourself. Or, hey, maybe even like Lunara, so that you don't even have to mount up and have that delay in the first place. It'll be interesting. What about Medevac, the dropship? Will that see play now? Are we going to be moving slow enough that that'll be a factor?
I don't. I think that is overreaching a bit. I mean, I think it's fun to think about the extreme reactions that this may cause. I don't think that's one of them. It is a relatively tame tweak to movement speed. I mean, we're only, adding a few seconds to response times in many cases. Obviously, size of battleground, it varies, but I sincerely doubt that.
What about the weird stuff like stage dive on ETC? I mean, Illidan's The Hunt is also one that people like to pick for fun, but often gets targeted as something you should just not be doing in higher levels of play.
I mean, I think to a certain degree there, I think there's a conversation to be had about level of play and whether it's coordinated or uncoordinated. I mean, are we talking about pickup games? I think on the lower end of leagues, that type of ability could probably actually help quite a bit. You're going to catch some people off guard, and you're going to be able to traverse the battleground faster. I don't think we're going to, suddenly see a surge of the hunt being taken in the championship games.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there that you have to have the skills to even execute it correctly in the first place. I've been teaching a lot of Falstad recently, and some of these students we just put on Rainer, and we say when you got Rainer down, then you can move over to Flying Crazy Rainer, right? It's got a bunch of other things to it for sure, but your fundamentals of stutter stepping, of selecting the right target during a battle will be more useful on Rainer, and then when you get fancy, you can take that drop to health, that drop to survivability, and move over to Falstad when you can work in everything else.
Yeah, and that's the other thing to bring up. Like, Falstad is already very popular. Brightwing is already very popular. These are two heroes with global presence that are seeing play now, are going to continue to see play afterwards, and in the high end, I don't think it's going to change things all that much.
No, if we think about our bans as they exist in solo queue, Zagara, Falstad will continue to reign supreme as an early ban. Zool on his certain maps, which doesn't really change. Actually, does change a little bit. If you build yourself a big old skeleton wave, people have to respond to it, and they have to walk that much slower to get there. So the choice of who responds to things is going to be that much more powerful. But I'll be curious to see if people like Brightwing, and I've got this crazy idea that Dahaka's amazing, just on like 2 maps, and it's not worth the practice to really get good at him. But I do believe Dahaka is about to explode.
I hope so, man. I get so excited when I see Dahakas in my games. On either side. It's fun to play against him. I don't see it enough, and I like playing alongside one, especially when they actually land the tongue. So
it's a lot like Chen or Medivh. You can know in the first couple seconds whether you have a good Dahaka or not. They get in the first fight, you go, hey, okay, Chen's good. Actually, he's one of those. Same with the Medivhs, but it's a little more subtle on Dahaka. They have this whole rhythm of collecting their trait up, and their trait heal really is more powerful than anything they can do at 10. So you have to manage it, and it is so easy to drop the ball, or just have a team that doesn't respect your ebb and flow of essence and ends up getting in fights before you're ready.
Yeah. So, but what about, do you have a different answer to the question that you posed, which was, what do you think the biggest deal in this patch is? Do you just kind of agree that this global movement tweak is going to have the biggest effect?
I'm really excited about the character design of Butcher, of course, because I've been loving him for a while. But what really interests me about him is a future philosophy, perhaps, that we can have characters that are late game, mid game heroes. Early game heroes that maybe we pick on a map that's usually really fast. I mean, maybe Brax's Holdout ends up being one of those. And you're not even planning to get to 16. You're just going to win the game before you get there. Or with Butcher now, everyone's got to respect that you need to farm a little meat first. And so I'm excited. I hope that knowledge permeates the scene and people are respectful of your lack of engage, maybe your attention to your laning phase and how you build power. And it should lead to an overall more educated scene where we're making more interesting choices. But right now, to completely counter that statement, Hammer is the top winning hero right now. Yeah. And that's a pretty strange world.
It is. I'm seeing a lot of Hammer picked in my games, to varying degrees of success and confidence, I would say. What about yourself, Kyle? Because we're definitely not on the same level.
Hammers are really hard to deal with because they require coordination to get over. And that's that next level of solo queue that is really hard to get in. You have to be chunking, like I talked about last week, to make sure that everyone has the encouragement and the morale to go deep enough. Hammer, until she gets a level lead, doesn't hit ridiculously hard yet. But it does take some level of coordination if they have a Morales, if they have anything that is really tied to protecting that Hammer. There's a lot to think about. And, her win rate is clearly the showing of how easy perhaps it is to gather around. mean, we have our dive meta. We have Kerrigan jumps and everyone goes, oh, catch the ball. Run, 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 run. Catch up with her. Okay, we won it. Nice, nice. Everyone's feeling good. Let's keep this ball going. And Hammer is a step in the other direction. But once it starts to work, everyone goes, yeah, protect that Hammer. This is great. Or Kael'thas completes his quest and everyone's on board with it. It's a weird thing. And I'm very curious if something like this will bring Hammer's win rate up. I mean, no one really gets to mount into her range, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's because just last week you spent a good amount of time talking about how the dive meta is really just king right now, and having to learn how to play around a Hammer. It's completely different beast. It's a very defensive offense in a way.
And we'll just have to see. It's so weird to be in this pseudo dive meta, but at the same time, Hammer's succeeding just because of ease of execution.
Yep. Plus,
and the visual cue.
Plus, another subject that has come up over the last couple of episodes on the show, and while I don't think we necessarily pointed it out as like a main topic, but we've talked a lot about Brent, we've talked a lot about Falstead. People understand how to counter the dive comp. They understand when to gust away. They understand when to polymorph. So I think that makes it a little easier for people to be like, okay, Hammer's in the game again now. Great, cool. We can work with this. No. Shall we move on and talk about PAX?
Let's do that.
All right, so PAX was this past weekend, and the North American Fall Regionals also took place there at PAX. Now, if you're one of those folks who likes to catch esports afterwards and don't want spoilers, now's your warning. Cool. Murloc Geniuses won, Kyle. A team I'm a rather big fan of, considered the underdog of the consistent teams.
I would say so.
Like, how do I put that? They're quite consistent, but still, in the greater scheme of things, considered the underdog, especially up against Gale Force Esports, which is who they ended up against in the finals. And like I said, wasn't as into this as previous esports events, just because, well, there's new shiny patches in the very near future, and that's what I want to see. But still, it was just an interesting tournament, if for no other reason than I don't think I've ever noticed a Reddit thread afterwards that pointed out all of the horrible misplays.
It was definitely interesting. Once again, shows the mood of the community right now. First of all, I mean, PAX, great event, pulled off great. Casters were awesome. Love the chairs, though. Let's face those chairs towards each other because it's a little stale. But at any rate, crowd is mic'd. All the usuals that I like to get on about this being a production were there. And it's so great to see these casters comfortable in their skin. Jayhow, in particular, really blew me away this performance. He has this rasp in his voice that when he yells in his hype mode, it is just so sports that I can't help but get caught up in it. I loved it. I'm really impressed.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a big Dreadnought fan. Again, still sad I missed out the episode that he guested on. I'm sure we'll have him on again, though. I just love listening to him because he's critical. Like, he doesn't pull any punches if he sees a misplay. And probably I think my favorite thing about watching the finals was during game 2, where early on he's just like, where he said something along the lines of, it really just seems like Murloc Geniuses understands the meta of heroes more than Gale Force Esports. And then 5 minutes later, Gale Force Esports has completely turned things around. He's like, you know what? I retract that statement. I think it was being unfair. And it's just like, yes, I like to see Dreadnought impressed.
It was a good show. I mean, that's not to take anything away from any of our other casters. I mean,
No.
But they've already come into their own. We flattered them enough. This was just my first real experience with him, and I ate up his production and, the cute selfies he was doing.
Yes.
With his height. Anyway.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk some of the stats. So the most played map was Sky Temple. Cursed Hollow came in underneath that. But what's more interesting are the least played, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Garden of Terror and Blackheart's Bay were the least played battlegrounds.
Which is interesting. Blackheart's Bay has always been one of those places where you take your enemy to show them that weird thing you know how to do on that map. Maybe we're just out of weird things to do on that map.
Yeah. So where's your head at on Blackheart's Bay? right now, because for me, it's a battleground. It's not like I have open disdain for it like Garden of Terror. I don't see it pop up, and I don't audibly groan. But there is a feeling of just ambivalence towards it, I think, for me.
It's one of my top win rates and has been since its release. And I've never been quite able to identify that. But I think it comes from my attention to the mercenaries and my want to jungle, perhaps as a previous Dota player. That is a great way to win this map and control the entire thing. Get the mercs, give you map control, turn in while you have map control, do it again over and over again, paint that map blue.
Do you think with 2 battlegrounds, in the chamber, one coming to us this Tuesday, that we're going to see any battlegrounds rotated out in the near future? And do you still think it should be Garden of Terror, or do you think there is room for debate for maybe Blackheart's Bay?
I think Blackheart's Bay is the most snowbally map in the game. And Garden Terror, while I wouldn't say it's more healthy, I think it's more even and has greater opportunities for counterplay. Because really, what are you doing on Blackheart's Bay? You're thinking to yourself, well, at least I'm thinking to myself, I need a jungler. And wouldn't it be cool if we can get Tracer or Tychus, someone who can really burn down a chest super fast, but that's not important. Whereas Garden of Terror, I'm thinking about a lot more things. I'm thinking Tychus, Leoric, building a good team comp, winning team fights, things that should add to a win, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I hate to say it. I think the changes that they've made to Garden of Terror have been for the good, and I'm not as I don't know, furious about it anymore. I've calmed down. I've had some good games on Garden of Terror at this point. For me, I think it's still a coin flip. There's things about Blackheart's Bay I still enjoy. I don't think I would be disappointed if one was chosen over the other and vice versa.
You're dancing around this like you're not going to invite your mother to your wedding. No, this is fine. Like, it's fine to say you hate it, man.
No. What I'm saying is I'm surprised about. I'm literally having this realization as I'm talking to you that I've had some good games of Garden of Terror as of late. So it's not so.
It has gotten a lot better, and I do not think that our devs are going to remove any maps anytime soon. That is a well-requested feature, and they would be excited to let us know it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about like a personal blacklist? Like you could say no bet in the, because that's a feature. I was thinking just along the lines of like what they did with Haunted Mines, where they just removed it on their own. We had no agency in it.
But it's coming back at some point, so that's why I'm saying I don't think we're getting anything like that. I would love a blacklist just for my own win rates, but I understand how that complicates the system with 9 other people doing the same thing. And
yes.
If I got the map that I blacklisted, I would be very upset.
Yep. And queue problems.
Exactly.
So let's talk about heroes. Zagara was banned 71%. That was her ban rate. And her win rate was exactly the same. 71%
Chance
win
coincidence.
Rate. Yes, chance. Really no core. That's insane.
But the jump is even more insane. The next most banned hero was Ariel at 34%. 71% on Zagara, 34% on Ariel. There was a huge disdain for Zagara throughout this tournament.
Yeah. And I can see why. I mean, we saw her show up during the finals, and it was quite the problematic hero. No. As far as popularity, as far as their banned and picked rate, Li Ming, 100%, either banned or picked in every single game of this tournament.
Strange, but a versatile hero.
Yeah, I'm honestly. I'm surprised you're having that reaction, because Li Ming's one of your go-to for that very reason. It's just because she kind of slots into most scenarios.
You just think with all the different maps, and granted, like we said, they only played some maps once. So Sky Temple being the most played, Curse Hollow the next, both good Li Ming maps because you get out of lane and there's not a lot of critters or monsters there on the objectives to really ruin your arcane orbs and stuff. But you just think at a pro scene, they know a little bit about each other. They've done some research, watched replays of each other perhaps. But to see something that, for sure, it's just kind of weird in that environment.
Yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, it doesn't surprise me as much. And part of it for me, she was on top for so long. I think that she's a comfort pick for most players at this point. And even though she's not the top dog anymore, still a completely solid hero. And I think, just a lot of people are comfortable playing her.
And she only got the bans 22% of the time, so she's just under the radar enough that you can for sure get her, and putting your practice into her won't be a waste of your time, like perhaps Zagara was here.
Yeah, that is nice. It's nice to see that correlation with pickup games and Hero League, because we go through that song and dance in our pickup games as well. I mean, finally Kyle can play Kael'thas. Like, in this past month, he's finally now banned every single game. For a while it was Li Ming and so on and so forth. So
only a 44% win rate on her, though. So nothing spectacular, though that's a solid realm. I think anything above 40 is good enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned. Warrior was the most popular, Muradin was the most popular warrior. Picked or banned 82% of the games. ETC pretty close underneath him.
And that support, Ariel. I don't know if it's the surprise factor or not. We saw some really nice Ariel batteries. She was picked in 68% picked or banned. Lunara really is a fantastic Ariel battery. Get you that hope.
Yeah, those are the two heroes I think I was the most excited about just seeing quite a bit of this tournament. It was Ariel and Lunara. Seeing a lot of Kerrigan, seeing a lot of Greymane. But I was really happy to see Oriole coming out quite a bit and seeing her play it in the hands of pros. Really, it's giving me the itch, Kyle. It's giving me the itch to become more competent with yet another support hero.
You should. For nothing else, because she's fun, the way Illidan's fun. You just don't have any mana, so you just keep on going, and every time you see a spell with casting, you cast it.
I can get behind that. And then no surprise, Zagara was the most popular specialist.
But Medivh was picked or banned in 40% of games, and we saw quite a bit of Medivh this weekend. Some of it was hilariously clumsy, but some of it was extremely impressive.
Yeah. Hey, that sounds a lot like the Medivhs we see in our games, Kyle. You don't know what you're getting.
Nope.
Right. I don't know what to expect in my own games when I see Medivh, and I don't know what to expect in pro games when I see Medivh.
A couple of surprising win rates, too, was Greymane, who was participating in 91% of the games, but had a 60% win rate. That's a big deal. The guy's been struggling for a bit. And I know there's a lot of passionate Greymane players out there who have been feeling pretty lost without him on the roster. So might be back. Might have his place again.
Yeah.
I think he suffered during the dive meta a lot because you're human when they dive you. And then you need to Worgen, but then they're already in your face, and you're not in control of the engage anymore.
Yeah. He was still beat out by Kerrigan, who had an even better performance than he at 71%.
Definitely, and I think that comes down to the ease of execution. Mm-hmm. As you jump in, activate your Maelstrom, and just hit as many people as you can. Whereas Greymane's got a bit of a dance to him, and that Eyes in the Dark is starting to seem like maybe it should be cooked in to disengage. As crazy as it is to say.
I was probably the most sad to see Tychus's very poor win rate for the tournament overall, as that is the hero I've been working on lately.
Yeah, Tychus, one of the worst performances at 14% win rate.
Yeah. Any other stats that stood out to you before we move on?
I mean, again, some of these guys just not doing so hot. Granted, this is the pro scene. There's a lot of elements to it. I know Tyrael was somebody I carried myself a very long ways in this particular season. But it was all that surprise factor. People didn't know how fast I could move, how many shields I could put out, what Sanctification did. Of course, pros are going to know that he had a 16% win rate as well.
Goodness gracious.
There was only one Rexar game while we're speaking of Warriors.
Is that surprising?
Was once again done by, on Spider Queen there.
Okay. Is that really surprising, Kyle?
Yeah, he loves them. What can I say? For supports, our worst performer was Uther at 38%. And that still makes me sad. Uther is my favorite support.
He's not mine anymore, but I really do like seeing him in pro play. And I think we're going to continue seeing him in pro play.
Watch for him, though. There is opportunities to take a really good Uther right now. Build yourself a dive comp. I mean, if you end up with 3 melees, end up going Holy Radiance build, still take your Shrink Ray, still take your Benediction, that sort of thing. But he does have a place with the right comp right now.
Oh, absolutely. The absurd engagements you can take as a result of Divine Shield, it's hard to argue with.
And also worth noting that Lili, Tyrande, and Malfurion only had 1 or 2 games each, but they all had a 100% win rate in those games they were selected.
Well, every Archdruid has his day.
Fair enough. And, for our specialists, they did extremely well, but for the ones that were played the most, actually the worst performance goes to Sylvanas at 66% win rate. Oh, no, right? But interesting that she maybe didn't do as amazing as our bans are saying. It's an interesting bit of stats. And Lost Vikings going 0-3. Pick 3 times, losing it all.
Oof. That's sad. That's very sad. Also, if you're curious about these, the stats on this, on the overall performance, they had to have at least 5 games that they participated in to be considered. In case you're curious why certain heroes were left out of these statistics.
Yeah, I mean, there were worse performances for sure. I mean, Jaina was in 1 game only and lost her only game, which is really weird because Jainas are everywhere, and someone out there is broadcasting that Jaina's first pick material, and my heart skips a beat.
I still stand behind Jaina, but
as a first pick, though, I mean, doesn't that?
Okay, fine.
I'd rather have Kael'thas first
All right,
pick.
Good point. Good. What? See, I'd rather wait on Kael'thas to see if they're, how many people are in the front line that I'm going to be hitting with gravity laps. But
of course, well, Jaina, much like our Chen and our Medivh discussion, Jaina's one of those that she gets on the field and you're going, who are you, Jaina? Do you sneak from the side or do you attack from the back and we're not going to get anything done? Are you a melee hero casting that Cone of Cold as far up as you can? Or are you a sweet sniper with those ice bolts?
Is it okay if I sneak from the side and I still cast Cone of Cold as deep as I can?
Yes, as long as you are sneaky about it.
Can I combine the two? All right, thank you, Kyle. Anyway, so some mini news. We already talked about the collection of bad pro plays that ended up on the Heroes subreddit, and some of these are just hilarious. And we're not pointing this out to be jerks and laugh at the pros. It's more so you can see that they're human and feel better about your own play.
Everyone makes mistakes, and the Redditor here did a good job compiling some of the really questionable plays, and it's worth a laugh, but certainly we're not calling out particular pros. And it does show a little bit of our current mindset. I mean, when you watch these games on Twitch and someone messes up, someone uses misclicks a wind at the wrong time, or just completely dives in through a portal. My favorite one was the Medivh here, who went through his portal, pops his protection, and Li-Ming just goes, okay, I'll wait 3 seconds for my spells, and then just blows him away. Not even waiting until the spells were in the air, just pops protection. These are amazing plays made by the enemy team. And we perhaps, as connoisseurs of esports, need to start thinking of that flip positive and saying, wow, what amazing plays by the enemy team to take advantage of a mistake like that, rather than lolling and so-and-so is bad, Terra bad, kick him off.
Yeah. Also, so you should go check out another Heroes podcast, The Core, with our buddy Gorath and friends over there. They had Blizz Travis on this past week from the Heroes team. And while discussing possible spitballing ideas that might happen, might not, things that might come to Heroes, he said that they're considering making Hero League solo only and rolling 2s and 3s and etc. into Team League in some way, shape, or form. It was extremely non-concrete. This was non-committal as all get out. But that, of course, begs the question, Kyle, what do you think about making Hero League solo queue only?
That would be very relaxing for me and my friends, I think. Because then there's no what if, right? And you're not questioning maybe your oh man, if I only had teamed up with so-and-so or if so-and-so was more available, or if our MMRs matched, Garrett, we could finally play together kind of business.
I mean, I still want to play together.
If we just go solo.
I mean, personally, I still want to play together in an environment where there's something for us to work on, like a rank of some sort. So that would make Team League interesting, right? Because everyone's gonna have a different opinion depending on how many friends they can regularly play with. Because I feel like if you're at 2, then you're worried like, oh, we're just gonna get bullied around by the 3 stack. But if you're the 3 stack, you're probably fine with it.
Or you think you're gonna get 2 bummer duos, right? So
fair enough.
It's not. They're experimenting with it, and they're open to just doing it for a season, which is very exciting.
I kind of, I like that. It's the thing I think I'm enjoying the most about Heroes and Overwatch right now is their willingness to just be like, we're not sure. This could work. Why don't we put it out there and try it? And if you listen to the Arena episode of The Angry Chicken today, you probably heard me kind of throwing my arms up because they're the opposite, and it drives me bananas.
They have been very responsive. And even in this monologue he was, putting out, he was saying they're thinking about rank decay, making sure that people who leave for a long time or place early in the season then return to play with practice no longer available, they should be slightly lower. Or as you log in, you should have to defend your title in your very first match to make sure you can stay there.
I really want rank decay.
It's such a dirty thing. And it's essential. It's the DKP, right? Like, you have to have this currency that no one can argue with, even though it stinks. And even the best raids in the world still sometimes have to enact some sort of way to make sure people who show up every day get rewarded more than the top performers in some ways.
Yeah, there's so many analogies my head is running away with, but it's like, yeah, you don't need to. I haven't taken a driver's exam since I originally got my driver's license, but I'm also not a professional racer. All right, like, yeah, you can come back to Heroes and play whenever you want. You shouldn't necessarily be able to come back to Heroes and play in Diamond League. I don't think you're necessarily entitled to that because you got there once.
It's tough too because it's a Blizzard game, and every time a Blizzard property comes out, we're all Blizzard fans and we go play said new thing, and then we return. And this, MOBA environment does have a limited enough, and I don't mean that in a bad way because games are still really good. I do not have crazy stomps right now. I'm having really good games in Hero League. But there is a clear show of queue times, of quality of players, and I just mean like the roster size, the practice, when new games come and go. And as a Hearthstone expansion comes out, those people come back, and now they have a limited player pool. Heroes really suffers from the ebb and flow of the population, which is going to happen with any game. And it's great that this game is exciting enough with Machines of War and things of that nature to bring people on back out of something amazing like Legion, which is pretty amazing right now.
Don't get me started.
I threw the invite out there, but if you don't want to.
Don't. I hit max today. And,
congratulations.
I need to focus on other things.
Cool.
Like Heroes. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I don't know. It's a competitive multiplayer game. I think you should need to log in. I don't think it needs to be extremely strict. I don't think it needs to be on some 8-hour cycle or something. Like, you haven't logged in for 8 hours, we're dinging your MMR. But, I think what would be an acceptable time for you to incur an MMR decay? I think a week is reasonable.
I think so. After our game this afternoon, we were both just shooting dark, having been a little unpracticed for even 2-3 days. Even.
Yeah.
So I like the StarCraft system is a little convoluted because you not only get your MMR decay, you also have bonus points. So when you don't play for 2 days, you incur enough points to counteract the MMR decay if you win. And even if you lose, it's a little less punishing. But if you go away for a week, 2 weeks, you're going to suffer, and those bonus points will meet a maximum, so you can't immediately catch back up.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, I think there's a reason you always dance around the subject. Like, it's not fun. No one gets excited like, yeah, MMR decay. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe you would when you're trying to break into Masters. But I think it's something that is essential to a game like this.
I agree.
So, new daily quests are coming, Kyle.
But only for new players.
Yes.
So we got to take a look at this. You get a play 3 games when you are a level 1 account, which is going to make people play more games, of course.
Yep. It's available up until level 10. At level 11, it will be replaced by the Play 8 Games quest. So, check that out if you're a new player. Also, if you're new, welcome. Enjoy your stay. Ignore everything we just talked about, MMR decay. This game is nothing but exciting, non-boring stuff.
Put away your spreadsheets for now.
For now, yeah. Come, give it a month, how far you get into it, and come back. More UI timers are coming. Centauric got on the horn and told us that they are doing a big pass on adding some UI elements to help with tracking core mechanics, like this in a similar method to Greymane's W to a bunch of the older heroes, like ETC's trait, Illidan's W, Diablo's trait. He said, I'm 65% sure Kerrigan's shields are already on the list, but when I get back in the office tomorrow, I'll double check. Yada, yada, yada. So that's cool. I always love more graphical information.
They're just kind of nice, even though that's just a little, like, GIF image going in the... I'm sorry for my pronunciation if that drove you nuts.
You've just angered 50% of the population. I say
right,
GIF
well,
personally. So
there's no stopping the world in this case.
On this show, it's equally represented.
Oh, perfect. No problem then. At any rate, Greymane's thing does not look fantastic. It could be a very cool little stopwatch kind of thing.
Yep.
But it's nice to have, and it stinks having to look in the corner for your little tiny block there that you're unable to ping on Diablo. So if I can ping that thing, let people know how many souls I have, I know I care about that way more than anyone else on my team does. But darn it, I need 60 before I make a hard engage.
Yeah.
Which that was...
Yeah. I mean, overall, we've been getting quite a bit of art updates. We're going to be getting some art updates to older Battlegrounds with the next patch that's over on the PTR right now. Dragon Shine's getting shined up. I personally get very excited about that kind of stuff until... I think you and I are in the same boat, right? If it affects icons that used to be just original Warcraft 3 RTS icons, then we get a little sad.
A little sad, yeah. I forget very quick, but it does hit me right in the feels.
Yeah. I will say, like, though on Arthas, like, Death Coil still looks like Death Coil. It's just shinier. And that I can get behind. A little more high res. Yeah, exactly. So, well, before we take quite a few emails, let's thank our patrons over at patreon.com/ITN for supporting our show. You can head over to patreon.com/ITN right now if you enjoy Into the Nexus. If you want to support us, that is the best way to do so. So check it out. On this episode, let's thank Connor L., Michael K., Chris T., Rowan C., Mikuba. I apologize in advance. I'm sure I butchered that. Ryan H., Justin K., and Jason M. Thank you all so much for supporting Into the Nexus. Now let's take some emails that have a strategy bend to them, but I'm going to play the emails bumper.
Darkness stopped calling.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing?
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com. The first one today comes to us from Daniel. And listener Spaz Wesson also sent in a very similar email. So this goes out to Daniel and Spaz Wesson. Love the show. Listen every week. How do you build a Hero League roster long term? As a lower level player, should I go for high win rate heroes like Lili or meta heroes that might be lower win rate like Rhaegar? What do you do about hero nerfs. I spent the last month learning Greymane, and he got nerfed. Then I would argue he's still very playable. Anyways, then I learned Falstad, and he's getting nerfed. Still going to be playable. It's fine. Do you think about having a well-rounded roster in terms of roles beyond the typical support warrior assassin, like solo laner, wave clear, etc.? I think you've kind of got your bases covered, Daniel, and I think you've already kind of brought in what I believe both of our first statement would be, which is it depends, which is our favorite way to start any discussion about anything in Heroes of the Storm. I'd like to lead with his concern about heroes being nerfed that he's learning.
Sure.
And I'm just going to bring it right back around to where we were talking about how Li Ming was the most popular hero at PAX this past weekend. And the fact that Li Ming used to be the top dog, the most sought-after hero, the most banned, the most picked for all of heroes, even in your pickup games and in pro games. And she got nerfed, and it's still totally fine. Like Kyle said, she is just enough under the radar that she, most of the time, is going to make it past that ban phase. So it's absolutely fine. Personally, I get excited when a hero I've been learning or I like to play gets dinged a little bit, because chances are I will now actually have the chance to play them. Where I would say you should maybe reconsider allocating your time is with the extremely popular heroes. Right now, Zagara would be one of them. Most likely going to be banned every game, and even the ones where she is not banned unless you are our first pick, probably not going to get her. That is a hero you may just put on the back burner for now, maybe don't sink time into.
You're dealing with expectations, though, and that's where it gets really tough, is you're that first pick and Zagara's available, and it's Tomb of the Spider Queen. And you know what? Some of the funny things about meta is they just work so well, particularly when you're mixing meta with their meta map. That's when it's worth it, even if you really stink. And you can just be trying as hard as you can to just not die. And you might stumble through with an understanding of what you should be doing. Good enough. And that's all you needed, because Zul, Blackheart's Bay, double soaking the top. Good enough. Every single fight after the first 7 minutes or so, you should have a 2-level lead. It doesn't really matter how amazing you play Zul at that point. I mean, sure, there's a lot you need to understand. Zul's only really amazing for the first, 4 seconds of a fight, when you either Poison Nova, put out your Skeletal Mages, then you're going to do a Scythe, you're going to get a Bone Prison, and then, you're going to do Curse Strikes with your little tiny auto attacks? Nobody cares, really. The attack speed curse is kind of nice, but really nobody notices. It's good enough in those cases. And so you have to play at a base level. Understand those base level, what you should be doing on Zagara, on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Beyond that, I mean, really, when we start talking about things like Falstad, where you're being creative in a sense, where you have to go that extra level, that ganking level, that map awareness, then I think you can just skip out.
Yeah.
I mean, lead them to ban it, sure.
Yes. Also, even even say that a nerf is quite effective to where it has actually dinged the hero quite a bit. A lot of times there's still scenarios where that hero is good. I mean, I don't think anyone I don't know, I'm seeing a lot more of them now, so maybe not. But for a while, I would say after Kael'thas's most recent nerf, it definitely wasn't the Swiss Army knife. He didn't fit into every scenario, but there were still scenarios he belonged in. And if you played Kael'thas before, there were traits of his playstyle, even though he doesn't play exactly like he used to. There's still things that they're still playstyle and way the way that you played him it still came in handy. It's not like it became a completely different hero.
Yeah, which for the most part hasn't really happened with anybody. Even our crazy switches of Illidan's kits back in the day didn't really change what he was meant to be doing in the first place.
That is true. It made him. He did kind of become a new hero, though. I mean, if you were playing original Tech Alpha Illidan, and you tried to pick up Illidan today, it'd be a learning curve for sure.
Definitely, but the goal is still the same: to jump people and slice them real fast.
Yes. It's, however, I would say that's an extreme example. Kael'thas still feels very much like Kael'thas Even Zagara, who has been changed quite a bit, still feels very Zagara-like. Personally, I would like to see Zagara nerfed a little more so I can actually play her again. But in terms of filling out your roster, I mean, there's...
I wouldn't worry about him.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a real cool idea, like I have my Leoric on Garden Terror because he drains percentage base, and when I meet that Garden Terror halfway in the middle of the map, I have the mobility with Wraithwalk to connect to Drain Hope, get myself out of there safely, even if the team is running with the Terror, and I can walk that thing, and by the time it reaches my wall of my keep, that is, because it's usually gone by the time we're doing this sort of thing, it's at a fourth of health. It's got that left, and we're doing fantastic. That is this little awesome, cute thing that I like to do for that particular map, and I love Leoric in the first place, so I found an excuse for it. Anytime you can find an excuse, that's great, but don't overseek those. Don't, one of the popular things to say right now, and it's 100% true, if you're on Tomb of the Spider Queen and they get Zagara, you get Thrall. And you put Thrall in that lane versus Zagara, and you do your early lightning talents so you can regenerate yourself. She's summoning things that the lightning bounces to. You'll do great. It feels amazing. You kick her butt if you know how to do it. But beyond those sort of extreme things, you should already like Thrall before doing that in the first place, depending on your skill level.
That's the thing, like, and this is something that I feel I have picked up through osmosis through spending a lot of time with you, Kyle, because when you were teaching me to play my first MOBA, which was Dota 2, you asked me what I wanted to do, what I was interested, what hero looked cool. You didn't just tell me, this is the best. This is the best for a new player. Just go play this. You didn't make the mistake that I made with roommates in college with WoW. It's like, well, we need a tank, so learn how to play a warrior because they're the best right now, and you can min-max it. You should be a human because their trait's fantastic, or whatever. Humans actually, their trait's really good for PvP. That wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for warrior tanking. But anyways, I digress. At this point, I am of the belief that if you're in a game like Heroes, your hero roster, it should be a mix. You should try and make sure you have those pocket picks. Even if you don't like supporting, you should have a couple supports that you're at least competent with, so that when you find yourself in that awkward situation, that you can still pick it up and play. Listen to last week's episode, actually, because we took an email from someone who said, should I learn to play the heroes that I suggest other people play, but I am not willing to play myself? And I think in the long run, as you're starting to up your game and broaden your hero selection horizon, that is absolutely something you should do. But if you are just getting going with your roster, if you're just trying to fill out, your favorite slots, I think it should just be a mix of you trying to fulfill most roles, but also keep in mind what you enjoy doing and play the things that will keep you interested in the game.
And there will be a place for them, no matter which hero you love. If you are willing to acknowledge there will be a place for them, you will eventually be able to take them. Tracer, Chromie, like all these sort of weird heroes we have right now. I love it. I love if you're amazing. You can't bring it into every comp, and good people know this, but when you see that one element that lets you throw the switch, it's extremely rewarding. If your first pick, on your team, and they first pick a Sonya on the enemy side, and you go, yes, I love Tychus, and there's no way they're going to solo tank into this. Let's do it and crank it out, and you're going to be victorious because you have all those cute little things you do that no one else understands on the enemy team.
Yep.
To flip that is extremely important, that your team understands what you do. So if you are going to pick Dahaka or Gul'dan for funsies, one of the problems with them is they're not very telegraphed. We don't know what they're going to bring to the table, and we don't know when it's going to happen. Chromie's great if she's good, but if she's bad, she's not bringing anything to the table because it's not contributing. Sandblasts, all these things, they don't add to a team environment.
Yeah. And that special case pick for me, that's Arthas.
Yeah.
If is against the Illidan, man, I love it. Like I most times it'd be like, cool, I'll support, I'll go Brightwing, I'll polymorph him. But if that's not the case, we need another frontliner, especially if Thrall is banned out. I'm just like, cool, I'm gonna go Arthas. I know he's very popular in the European scene, but he's not here, not on the North American server. I know I'm confusing the crap out of my opposing team when I pick him.
Oh, he's a great anti-melee, particularly if you lost Muradin, or you're just simply in a casual setting not passionate about Muradin.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he moves slower, and I have definitely advanced my drafting a lot recently by acknowledging that some warriors are just meant to maraud more than others. And I mean, like, Muradin is the love of most World of Warcraft tanks who come to this game. And it's a funny element because you do the same thing. You leap in, you do a slow, you stun something, and then you just hit things for as long as you can, and you buff your own health and you heal yourself, and something about that speaks to World of Warcraft tanks really well.
I do want to argue, even though it is irrelevant to Heroes of the Storm, just warrior tanks in World of Warcraft. Just warrior tanks, because I am a paladin and I can't leap in. I couldn't do that if I wanted to.
Well, sure, but you do that quest to go get the boomerang so you can make the pools, right?
Oh, man, you went super old school. Oh, my God. This is
that's
why
my
we're
experience,
friends.
man.
This is why you're friends. You just invoked Lincoln's boomerang from Ungoro Crater in vanilla World of Warcraft as a pooling tool for paladin tanks before they had any ranged ability. You are my spirit animal. Anyways, no, we have plenty of ranged abilities now. But
when you acknowledge that Muradin will not take care of your back line at all, you can make some really smart drafting decisions. You do the same thing with Leoric. You get a Leoric, you say, no one cares about a 40% slow. If they want to get by Leoric, they will. So let's not get Jaina. Maybe we get one Jaina. Maybe we have one Jaina, but everything else is Tracer, Squirrely. We put a Tassadar with that maybe. Like, there is no backline to circumvent Leoric for now, and we have made an extremely smart draft. Whereas Johanna, you put Johanna with, the Tracer and all that, and it's kind of messy because Johanna does a great job holding the front line together.
Well said. So, yeah, Daniel and Spaz, I wouldn't overcomplicate things for yourself. If you feel you've reached the point where you have enough of an understanding where you're like, man, I really do need some wave clear, add it in. Or maybe there's already a hero that you are proficient with that has that, so you've got yourself covered. But I would move at a pace in terms of your roster, your hero stable, whatever you want to call it, that works for you.
I would say, yeah, and then to Spaz's question where he asked really, are we going to get good at meta picks to get good? In our current meta, it's Specialist. It's still Specialist. The dives, do win the day very often, but those first picks, you need to understand what you have to do in every map. So Battlefield of Eternity, Battlefield of Eternity, Infernal Shrines, you should probably know how to play a base level Sylvanas. You need that base level Zul for Blackheart's Bay and Spider Queen, perhaps. And you really need that base level Zagara for Spider Queen, but you can let it go on most of the other maps. And I feel the pain, the cries of 1,000 voices in terror as I say that, but just understand those basics.
Yeah. Also, right, I'm still not seeing Zagara make it through drafts at the moment, or make it through bans. So I haven't been practicing my Zagara at all. So patrons for the after show games, if you're going to ban out my Zagara or take her away from me, let it happen. I'm expecting it. So let's move on to Trolloman's email. Trolloman wrote in and said, I think it would be nice if you talked a bit about winning the video game. I have had several games this last couple of weeks when my team refused to win, even when we have a good win condition. I've never seen it typed like that. Here is a relatively short recap on the unwillingness to win. Okay, so he sent in, oh my God, we got a game story. We'll call this a frustrating game story.
Sounds good.
Shall we?
We wouldn't want to confuse branding here.
No, it wouldn't. No. Or how you should feel at the end of the story. Trollman said, we start around 17 minutes into the game. We are level 20, they are 19. It is a big team fight, and we kill all of them and get a curse. Okay, cool. So you go win right now, right? Wrong. Instead of pushing a keep or core, my team takes boss, which gets nothing done as we don't push with it, and the enemy team just kills it off. So what do? We take the other boss, of course, and then just let it go. 21 minutes in, we finally push to get a keep, and with it, we take 3 kills. Now we sort of push for core, but when the tribute comes up and some of the team gets a bit low, so they run away. Core stops at 23%. Oh, I got to be vomiting on my keyboard right now. At 24 minutes in, we have one other fight around the tribute and wipe the enemy team again. And now finally, we go for core for the win. So to recap, we had 4 wasted chances of winning and 1 where we actually did. Okay, well, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, at least you won.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but I have found myself in this position so many times. How many times, Kyle, have you found yourself having won a game and yet feeling completely short of breath and you need to like just rinse off because you're sweating profusely?
Sometimes when your draft is just so beautiful, so esports looking, and the enemy team is just awful, and you end the game and you're just going, that was way harder than it ever should have been. And that's to take away credit from that amazing murky player or whatever you didn't have respect for on the enemy team. But it is just flabbergasting how badly some people want to throw. And sometimes the early game goes so amazing that people start to throw because they're just full of themselves. And we don't end the game almost in a classic MOBA sense because people want to shot more. They want to get to level 20. They want to take that mercenary camp because it feels so good to finally be winning a game with Nova.
I cannot help myself in so many scenarios where we are ahead and hit 20 from taking Death's Advance on Arthas. I know I shouldn't. I know it's not the safe pick, but damn it, it's so much fun.
And there are some win more talents that are very visual that let people know, let's win right now. Like Archon on Li Ming. If we have to back out of this, I'm dead. So let's just lock in and win this game right now. So, you know, they're not all bad. They all have their little place.
Yeah.
But this happens way more than it should. But it is a bit tough to... It's tough to grab. And it's usually the supports I find that are causing the most issues when a game needs to be won.
Yeah, because they do carry a lot of weight, right? If your support leaves, that's the flare. That's the pull back.
And tanks do this too, but I find that tank mains are a lot rarer than support mains. And support mains are ridiculously careful, and they don't like taking many risks. Yeah. And that's great, and that's fine. But they're also usually the most aggressive because all they're doing is watching other people. Yeah. I find, too, that their damage is ridiculously low when they're on Rhaegars and things of that nature that should at least break 20,000 in a game. They're usually a little too safe for my liking. You got to take some risks to win.
I can be guilty of that. I'm a generally safe player, except when I get on Arthas. But there's a lot of Arthas talk today. Anyway, I would say, in short, you should just always be asking yourself, can we win now? But in an uncoordinated pickup game where you are not on the same team as the 4 other players, you don't have a lot of agency in this. And honestly, Tralaman, it sounds like you did the right thing in this scenario, which was just stay with the team. Don't try and force something, overextend, and cost yourself the game. As frustrating as it can be, to spend an extra 5, 7, 10, who knows how long, many minutes. It started at 17 minutes in when the first, issue happened, and it ended at 24 minutes. So not, you're coming in under 10 extra minutes. I'd rather have the win. And again, I have already openly admitted I tend to play a little safer usually. But I think he made the right call here. The thing you don't want to do is what comes naturally, especially to me, which is start typing like, come on, let's just end, go, when the 4 other people have left and you're staring down an altar with people about to res.
And it goes against, something that I'm working on right now, which is always making sure that if I'm going to retreat, I give an alternative. I never ping retreat right now. It is the most ignored ping in the game. What you should do is ping something equally interesting. And if you're going to say, we're not going to team fight here, I know team fighting is the fun of this game. Let's go do that boss, though. Wouldn't that be fun, guys? I still believe in the retreat ping or a danger ping, because a lot of times I do feel like a visual must be given that isn't on the mini map to the people currently staring at a certain area. So that's why I like that ping. And then follow it up with a directional ping. I like that.
2 pings. The 2 ping system, Kyle.
Yes, the 2 ping system.
We'll call it buddy system. The buddy ping.
Yes.
Yes, there you go. Something that's obvious and in your face, and a more subtle nudge in a direction afterwards.
And you've been in me with games where I've actually typed out, I know this is the boring way to win, but let's win this. And we've got another 5 minutes in this.
I think that's probably surprisingly effective.
But it certainly worked great for us on the Team League night 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that night is a blur for me. I remember more of more of my wedding than I remember of that Team League night.
Good old 3 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, Tralaman, Spaz Wesson, Daniel, thank you for your emails. Again, everyone, you can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com. That is going to do it for this episode. If you are a patron, hang out, because we're going to be doing patron after show games if you're watching live. If you're a patron not watching live, sorry, you can't play, but thank you. You're awesome.
And those will be on the PTR, by the way, today.
Oh, they will. Okay, cool. Didn't know. I did not uninstall it, as I have enough space, so we're good to go. Again, check out patreon.com/ITN if you want to support the show. Huge thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H. and Cheesy Bob. We have coffee mugs, we have pint glasses, we have wine glasses. You can get at etched.amove.tv. They're custom etched glasses, mugs, and whatnot, so go check that out. We also have the Into the Nexus t-shirt over at shirts.amove.tv. It's our first t-shirt ever, so you can go pick that up. Catch us live Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on twitch.tv/AMoveTV. Or if you need it on the go, check out alphageekmedia.com. You can follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast, and we'd like to thank Brian Griffith and Gorath for our intro and outro music. Although I had those names backwards. Gorath does our intro music. Brian did our outro music and previous intro music. So thanks to those talented musicians. And make sure you go check out Gorath's show, Core, also about Heroes of the Storm, where they had a dev interview this past week. So go check that out. Kyle, where can folks find you when you're not doing Into the Nexus?
Well, you can find me lots of places, but this week you can find me Friday, so that's tomorrow, and Saturday, streaming at 3 p.m. Pacific over at twitch.tv/Kyle Ferguson. We got a solo queue to make up from the computer woes, and of course the new Saturday stream, which was unlocked by the patrons, and that'll be happening at 3 p.m. Also, check out a show I was on recently, How We Roll. It is a Dungeons & Dragons and other dice game radio theater show. Nice. And I joined them for a Call of Cthulhu game that was based on, Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs, Call of Cthulhu.
Yes.
I need to go find this podcast right now.
Yeah, like, you finished the job, but the job was, like, kind of insane.
Did you, were you Mr. Pink?
I was Mr. Green.
Ah, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Garrett Art. I can be found also on nomoonart.com. That's my graphic design portfolio. Go check that out if you need yourself a graphic designer. And many, many other podcasts, which can be found at amove.tv. I would like to put a little spotlight on Embrace the Spoilers, the spoiler show that I've been doing with Jocelyn. It is back, and we are spoiling World of Warcraft Legion for the next 5 weeks. We're doing one episode per zone up to level 110, so we'll be covering all of the zones, all of the lore goodness that is just oozing out of all of them. The story in Legion has really impressed both Jocelyn and myself as Warcraft lore nerds. So check that out. Embrace the Spoilers. I don't believe the name has actually updated on iTunes, so if it says Game of Thrones or whatever, you found the right show. Sorry, it's been a busy week. I need to fix that RSS feed. It can take some time to update. So, anyways, that will do it. We have codes, which you can use over at doghousesystems.com. If you use the code ITN, you will get a free solid-state drive added on to the amazing gaming rig that you will be buying for yourself. That's in addition to the regular hard drive as well. So use the code ITN. You will support the show. You will get yourself an awesome gaming rig. I use one myself. I love it. Talking through one as we speak. You can also use the code ITN over tweakedaudio.com, where you can get 30% off and free shipping off of your entire order of noise-reducing earbuds and headphones from Tweaked Audio. We thank them for their support. We thank you all for listening. And until next time, which next time we will have Braxis Holdout. We will have Alarak. We will have the beginning of Machines of War in the live game of Heroes of the Storm. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.